What up gamers, Fancier here, and in this video I want to share my first impressions of Andor, a new Star Wars TV show that feels very different from the usual Star Wars movies and other shows that we have right now. But nevertheless, I will be discussing and sharing my opinions on the first three episodes of Andor, but I will say I did watch episode 4 as well, but I won't really be talking about that in this video because I like to limit my first impression videos to the first three episodes. But maybe at the most I can share my feelings on episode 4. And in preparation for the show, I rewatched it Rogue One because, to be honest with you guys, I completely forgot everything about Andor. Like, he was a good character in Rogue One, but I didn't feel like he was that important or memorable to the point where he would have his own show. Like, that never really crossed my mind. Like, I would say the most memorable thing I remember from him was his very last scene because it was a very beautiful and touching scene, but that was pretty much it. Everything else I had to relearn his story and stuff by rewatching the movie. And dude, I gotta say, man, the movie Rogue One, oof, one of the better Star Wars movies from the past half decade because it does something I feel that is very original, where it doesn't rely too much on the mysticism of Star Wars to tell a good Star Wars story. Like, it doesn't rely on the Force, Jedi, or Sith. Instead, it talks about the soldiers from the Rebels and the Empire. It feels more like that. And yeah, they were still able to tell a very good Star Wars story without relying on the mysticism, which I thought was very unique and very cool and also refreshing too. And pretty much goes the same with this show here, in which we're about to go into. But I do want to warn you guys up ahead that there will be spoilers of episodes 1 to 3 of Andor, as well as with the whole Rogue One movie, because I do want to make some comparisons and connections with that. So, spoilers up ahead, you've been warned. So to start, let's talk and summarize the story of the first three episodes of Andor, in which I feel like I can briefly do. So 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, which I do love how they add that detail because it does make the cinematic side of Star Wars feel more official and realistic, like there's a timeline to follow. It feels like I'm learning history, so yeah, I do love that. Pretty much 5 years before Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, we have our main character, Andor, who is searching for his sister, but he got into an altercation with two officers and ends up accidentally killing them. Like, he does it unwillingly. And because of that, he is now a wanted man and is on the run. And now he wants to get off planet and go into hiding. And there are other stories with new characters, like with Bix and Tim, who are a couple, but the latter got jealous of Andor because it seems like he thinks Andor and Bix are a thing. And so he ratted out Andor to the officers, and that pretty much made the officers give them a lead on where to find Andor here. And then we also got Karn, who is an officer that wants to bring justice to the two officers that Andor killed, but at the same time, he seems to be very conflicted with himself, I think. There's also Marva, who is Andor's adoptive mother, where she is part of another story, which was Andor's past, where as a kid, Andor was taken in by Marva because she fears of his safety if he were to be discovered by the Republic, but because of that, he had to leave his sister behind, and so now he searches the galaxy for her. And there's even more characters that I haven't mentioned yet, but I'm not going to be talking about them because they seem pretty minor to the story so far. But the last character I will talk about is Luthen Rael, who is this very experienced fighter who tries to teach Andor the ropes and tries to escort him off the planet as well because he's the guy that Andor contacted to get him off the planet. But yeah, not much for me to say about Luthen Rael here. Like in episode 3 where he was introduced, he had a very straightforward story, but after watching episode 4, it does seem like he's going to be a very important character later on. But at the end of episode 3, Tim died, Bix was chained to the wall and was later freed. Karn and his team failed to capture Andor, thus making Andor and Rael be able to escape and get off planet. So that was a brief summary of the first 3 episodes of Andor, and the reason why I did it very briefly, which is also my first opinion or thoughts on the show, is because it is a very slow show that has a very simple and straightforward story. So to me, it is slow to the point where, like I said, you have these very simple and straightforward stories of Andor wanting to get off the planet, Tim is jealous of Andor, and Karn wants to deliver justice on the 2 officers that Andor killed. And this was pretty much the first 3 episodes of the show, which can feel like a drag because you kind of get the point of it by the end of the first episode, I feel. But it's not all that bad because when it comes to the slowness of the show, I have a very mixed opinion on. Like when it comes to the goodness of it, I do like how we can just chillax and just watch the world building pretty much throughout these episodes. Like when you have that one guy in that bell tower just manually making those bell rings with his hammer with in this specific rhythm. Like, yeah, I do like seeing stuff like that. It does make Ferrix here, I believe is the name of the world that Andor is on. It does make it feel very much like unique and lived in. The same thing with Canary, and also you get to see the point of view from the officers. So yeah, like stuff like that, I do like to see. But like I said, by the end of the first episode, I feel like when it comes to the story, you kind of get the points of it and you just want to move on, which I feel like that's what episode 3 was. So if I had to like maybe personally change up the pacing or story of the show, I would combine episode 1 and 2 together, make that like the introduction and world building episode, and then episode 3 would be episode 2 where that's when like the next step of the story takes place where things get really serious. So I have very mixed opinions on the slowness of the show because I do like it, but at the same time I don't, and yeah. that is why. But yeah, I would say the slow pacing of the show is my biggest issue so far. Other than that, I think everything else like the stories and the characters are really good. I don't really have any problems with them, and I guess we can go one by one with each of them. So of course, I feel like we gotta start with our main character Andor, because I mean that's what even the show is named after, so yeah, he's a very important character. So Cassian Andor, I already said his story, where while searching for his sister, he ends up accidentally killing 2 officers, and because of that, he is now wanted and is on the run and wants to get off planet to go into hiding. At least that's what I think his original plan is. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And what I think about this show's Andor is I do love it a lot. I think especially with this show being like an origin story for Andor, I think it does complement the Rogue One version of Andor a lot. And what I mean by that is that we have Andor in both the show here and in Rogue One, and I feel like they're 2 different Andors that I feel like do complement each other very well, because back in Rogue One, like even comparing like the first time he killed someone, which I feel like does mirror to like what he did in the show here with the officers. So back in Rogue One, when he killed the informant, like he did it like right away in cold blood. I feel like he didn't really, think about it too much. There was like no remorse, at least not a lot of it. Maybe he does feel bad about it, but like it's more like, you gotta do what you gotta do. And then you have Andor in the show here, where when he accidentally kills the first officer, he didn't even realize that he killed him or even wanted to believe it, because I don't think that was part of his original plan. I think his plan was to get a hold of their blaster and scare them off with it, but nope, that's not possible because he accidentally kills one of them. And I do think it did get to him once he realized it, and when the second officer was screaming the first officer's name, acting like he lost a friend, and then afterwards he begged for Andor to spare him, to spare his life. And then you see Andor here just pausing for a moment to hear him out, and it looked like Andor would have spared him, but nope, like I said, he just ends up killing him and goes off and run away. And yeah, it is such a big character difference where I feel like the Rogue One version of him would have just like killed them both right away as soon as he got a hold of the blaster. And I also feel like he's kind of a scaredy cat in a way, but of course with a good reason because he's a wanted man now and people are hunting him down. But yeah, he tried to make other people, like his friends, make up stories on his whereabouts and all that stuff. And also he's trying to like get off the planets, and I feel like the way he present himself was in a very panicky way. So yeah, like the way I see Andor here in this show, like I feel like he's a much lesser version of him than what he was back in Rogue One. So yeah, I'm pretty excited, especially with this show being like an origin story, and with Luthen Rail here being like, I guess, the mentor maybe for Andor to become what he is in Rogue One. Like, yeah, I just feel like this whole story here with this show, with Andor in his story, like we're gonna see just how he went from, I guess, a scaredy cat to a bravey cat in Rogue One, and I'm very much looking forward to that because I do love character developments a lot. So yeah, Andor is the best parts about Andor in my opinion. I think especially too with like his flashback story going on, his past. Like, yeah, I like that too. I like Andor a lot. I think he's definitely going to be growing a lot in the show, and I can't wait to see that. But of course, even though the show is named after him, he's not the only character that we're following with their story. We also have Bix and Tim here, where Tim believes that his girlfriend Bix is cheating on him with Andor, and to get revenge against Andor, he ratted him out to the officers that are hunting him down, but that ended up with Bix getting into the mix. Bix getting up to the mix, I like that phrase a lot. But yeah, Bix got into the crossfire between the officers and Andor. In an attempt to save her, Tim lost his life to the officers, and yeah, they just pretty much shot him down to the ground. And you do see like his lifeless eyes. And yeah, that pretty much concludes the story of Tim, which, you know, I feel like it is a character that I do feel bad for. Even though he did very much a bad thing to Andor, I do feel like, you know, he could have been a good character. Like maybe if he talked things out with Bix, and maybe this whole like misunderstanding could have been, you know, could have been settled. But nope, he decided to rat Andor out, and I feel like in a way this was kind of like karma, even though I feel like he was kind of a good character. But with Tim gone, that does open up the romantic relationship between Andor and Bix, and I do wonder if that is going to be a thing, because it does seem like they kind of teased that when they interacted with each other. But yeah, we'll definitely see. I mean, they could do a different thing. I mean, she wasn't there in Rogue One, so maybe something bad might have happened, like maybe she might have died later on, or maybe she just went off in her own way to do other things that doesn't have to deal with Andor. So yeah, we'll definitely see. I'm kind of curious on where Bix will go, because I think she's also a pretty interesting character to follow, even though I feel like we don't really get much like with her character. I think it's pretty much like the same amounts I feel with Tim. And now we have a character called Karn, who seems to be the main antagonist for the show, at least for the first 3 episodes. After watching episode 4, I feel like that might change, but we'll definitely see. But yeah, with Karn here, we do see things from the officer's perspective, which I think is really cool, because you know, it really does help out with the world building. Like, not only are we seeing things from the civilian point of view with Andor, Bix, and Tim, but we're also seeing things from the higher up with the officers here, and I think that that is just really cool. But yeah, Karn's story here is, like I said before, he wants to avenge the 2 officers that Andor killed, and so he leads a team to Ferrix to hunt or kill or arrest or whatever, do any of that to Andor on Ferrix, because yeah, like I said, he wants to avenge those 2 officers, but he ends up failing, and he felt very, very bad about it. Like, you do see his like very I guess shocked reaction. Now I gotta say, I think Karn here might be one of my favorite characters. Maybe favorite character because I do have a bias towards villains and stories, and if you give them enough they'll be like one of my favorite characters. And I feel like that's what they did with Karn here. But at the same time, though, I'm not sure what to make of his character in the end because he would have these really weird moments that I can't interpret for myself. Maybe you guys can explain it to me. But the way I saw it, like, and this is why I said before that he's conflicting with himself because I do see these really weird behaviors where at first he seemed very confident and competent and devoted to avenging those two officers that Andor killed. But then ever since he made that very weak speech to his team as they traveled to Ferrix, like I don't know, he's just been very off and I can't really understand like what he's feeling, like if maybe he doesn't feel right for the job, like if he's not leadership material, maybe he's not experienced enough, unlike that other guy, that other officer that is with him that seems to be very competent. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of him. So yeah, I'm not really sure like how to feel about him like in the long run, but yeah, for now I do like him. I do wonder if maybe he'll go deeper and be more devoted into avenging the two officers, or maybe he thinks what he wants is not what he wants and maybe he'll join the rebels. So yeah, I feel like either way, I'm going to enjoy his story because I just don't know what to expect from him, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun to experience. And then we have Marva, where, you know, even though she's a very important character, I don't think I can really say much about her because she pretty much just plays the role of Andor's mother. So yeah, I'm going to like maybe save her later on for my full review because yeah, I don't really have much to say about her. But I guess the last character I'll talk about is Luthen Rail, who is very interesting because I think he definitely left an impression on me when he put those slap charges around the building. Like he knows what he's doing. He's teaching Andor to, like what I said before, to be the Rogue One version of him, and I'm very much looking forward to that. But after watching episode 4, I do wonder just how much involved he will be with Andor, but I don't know, we'll definitely see. But yeah, I think Rail is a very cool character, but just like with Marva, there wasn't really much to talk about with Rail other than he's very cool and might be a mentor to Andor. But yeah, after watching episode 4, I think we'll definitely see more of Rail. I do hope we see more of Marva and all the other characters like with Bix and stuff. But yeah, that's all the characters and their stories that I want to talk about. Like I said, there's even more characters, but right now in the story they seem very minor. Not sure how they're going to come back to Andor here, but yeah, we'll definitely wait and see. And so yeah, that was it. Those are my thoughts on episodes 1 to 3 of Andor. And I do want to talk about episode 4, but not the story stuff. Like I said, I just want to talk about my feelings of it because yeah, after watching the first 3 episodes of Andor, especially with its slow pace, I did wonder what episode 4 was going to be like, especially since, like, afterwards from here, like after episode 3, it's just going to be 1 episode per week. Unlike with the launch of the show, it was like at first 3 episodes, which, yeah, I definitely appreciate that. I definitely appreciate they release like the first 3 episodes because, man, I feel like going by that, like 1 episode per week for those 3 episodes, yeah, that's not gonna be good. But yeah, with episode 4 here, I can safely say that it is better. Things are getting better, but I feel like it's getting incrementally better, just like 1 step up from the previous episodes. Like it's still slow, but I feel like it's getting better, and also really cool with the world building too. Like, ooh, man, I love it a lot. There was even some Easter eggs, but yeah, episode 4 definitely better, but I would say it still has that very slow pace to it, which I feel like might turn off some people. For me, like I said, I'm very much mixed up with it, but yeah, episode 4 I think is a step in the right direction. But yeah, overall, I do love the Andor show here. I think it's a really cool take on Star Wars because just like with Rogue One, they don't rely on the mysticism of Star Wars like at all, especially in this show. You know, back in Rogue One, you had this one character where they would always like have the Force as like their, I guess, their guide. But in this show here, there's like no sign of that. Like Andor is its own beast, like its own thing. And I can definitely see why people say that it doesn't feel like Star Wars. But yeah, to me, it still kind of feels like it. It's just in a different perspective, I guess. Because, yeah, from the Jedi perspective, from all that stuff, like, yeah, you have to deal with the Force. But from a civilian point of view, I don't think they will really have that experience. So even without the Force, the Jedi, and the Sith, I do think this show does hold up very well on its own. But I do hope that this is the only show that does take this angle, this like perspective on Star Wars, because I feel like for the most part, Star Wars is the Force, the Jedi, and the Sith. And so I hope that when Disney, when they make these kind of shows, that they do it in low amounts. Like I want more mysticism in Star Wars than shows that don't really have those. So that is all I want to say. Those are my first impressions of the first 3 episodes of Andor, and I'm curious about you guys as well. What do you guys think about the first 3 episodes of Andor, and maybe episode 4 as well if you want? Do you like it or dislike it, love it or hate it? Let me know down in the comments below. I am very much interested because, like I said at the very beginning, it feels like a very different Star Wars here, like a very different take on it. And so, yeah, I'm just really curious about what you guys think about this show. So, yeah, that's all I want to say. I will be making a full review of the show when the first season is done, and then we'll get into the second season, make my first impressions on that, then the whole review on that. But yeah, I believe there's only going to be 2 seasons of the show because it is going to lead up to the Rogue One movie. So yeah, can't wait to see the progression of the Scaredy Cat Andor to the Bravey Cat Andor, just like I said before. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this whole Andor show here. So yeah, guys, that is it for now. That's game.